The Cuba Opportunity Summit underway at the NASDAQ. I'm joined by Susan Seagal, President and CEO of America Society Council of Americas, or ASCOA. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you for having me.
This is all about opportunities in Cuba, risk. I want to ask you about the real Cuba. What is it about Cuba that is perhaps a misconception to most on the business side?
Well, I think that what is the biggest misconception is that we are beginning, as Assistant Secretary Jacobson said this morning, we are beginning a process. And that process is going to take time. And most of what's in the private sector today, by any standard, is very micro-oriented. It's the micro-entrepreneur. So I think we're going to open embassies. Hopefully, with time, Cuba will get off the state-sponsored terrorist list. We hope with even more time, the embargo will go away. But that's a congressional act, as Secretary Jacobson was saying. And so all of this is going to take some time before businesses will, number one, before there'll be an opportunity, and number two, for businesses to be able to invest in any kind of scaled way.
But you do right now, in your organization, have a working group on Cuba where a lot of businesses are having discussions. What are American businesses trying to do now for that potential? What are you hearing from this group?
Well, we've started this working group in 2007. So the idea that we're working with Cuba is 7 years old. And we've taken, in fact, I've led 2 delegations, and we had an additional kind of educational research mission that went to look at entrepreneurship. And what we have been doing since the very beginning is working with different sectors and businessmen from different sectors to develop a strategy around what would be needed to do business in those sectors and what would have to happen. We were the author 2 years ago of a paper called 7 Steps that the president could take without lifting the embargo, which would allow some investment. For example, what's happening now in the telecommunication, in the technology area. There already was some investment in the agricultural area, in the financial sector, et cetera.
What about access to capital?
Well, access to capital, you have to define access to capital. So one of the things that President Obama did in his recent review of or change in our strategy towards Cuba was to allow larger remittances, particularly from family members, to go into Cuba. That's very, very important because that allows Cuban Americans to invest in family businesses by using the remittances, the old diaspora, right? We talk about it in a lot of different countries. Well, there's a diaspora, a very large diaspora of 2 million Cubans living in the United States that could possibly send money home to invest in different businesses. Then there's larger, capital investment, let's say in the tourist industry, in the telecommunications industry, in the technology industry. And what you see is a number of strategic companies looking at possible investments, always under the law and based on what's permitted, which is still being defined, right? And then you also hear I'm beginning to hear of companies or individuals or funds that are trying to create specialized funds to invest in Cuba. I think that that's maybe not to organize the funds is going to take some time, but to find investments it may take some time in Cuba.
Well, a lot going on, Susan. Thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you very much.
I'm Rhonda Schaffler for The Street.